No better way that any of us could think of than to have you get to meet Chloe Higgins. Chloe, I've heard it several times now, her describe herself as our guinea pig. I think pioneer is a more complimentary term. She was our pioneer intern last year, and she has been back with us again this last summer, helping the second group of hometown interns. So she is going to share just a little with you today about how she has gone about creating a welcoming community, which obviously goes to our topic today. So Chloe, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you for that introduction, Casey. Yeah, as he said, I was the pioneer hometown intern in 2019. And then this last summer, I got to serve as the intern coordinator for the community foundations. And both of those times I was working from my hometown of Nebraska City. One of my projects while I was the pioneer intern in 2019 was hosting an event called Dinner and Conversation. So the goal of this event was to have more of these dinners in the future and bring in people who don't normally have a voice at the table. The content of the dinner was simply a potluck, and then the conversation centered around 3 questions that were meant to evoke conversations about what community really is and how these leaders want to change their community in the future. Our goal with this event was simply to facilitate productive conversation and allow people from all walks of life to learn from each other. And we hope that other communities will be interested in holding similar events in the future. And if you go to the resource page for this week, you can find a guide to host your own dinner and conversation if you're interested. As a young person, the experiences that made me feel most connected to my community were those where leaders directly asked me for my thoughts on the community and sought to build relationships that would keep me engaged with what was happening in my hometown. We must be diligent in asking people about their thoughts on their communities and seek to listen and understand above all. So today we'll have you answer one of those questions from the dinner and conversation night and hopefully build community with each other in your breakout rooms. The key is to ask, listen, and understand people's different perspectives and examine what it is that brings people closer to their hometowns. Talking to the people around you in honest, authentic conversation is how we bridge differences in our society and bond over our commonalities and differences. So in your breakout rooms, each person will have time to answer the question, tell a story of a time in your childhood that connected you to your community. And I believe you have 5 minutes in your breakout rooms, so enjoy your conversations. The numbers are slowing down, so I'll just welcome everybody back from their breakout rooms. I hope you enjoyed connecting with each other. I hope you learned something about what makes all of our hometowns or our current communities so special. And now I'm gonna pass it back off to Casey Baylitz.
Thank you, Chloe. So it's a session on attracting youth. And we started that with the question that Chloe asked you on purpose, because what we have learned in the last year is that that connection to community is going to be a significant factor in your ability to be successful in attracting youth. And as the old saying goes, the only people that want to be retained are attorneys. So youth don't want to be retained. They want to be attracted. They want to find a magnetic community that draws them in. And over the last just short of a year, NCF has undertaken a project which has given us some great insight into specifically what do students who are currently Nebraska high school youth, how would they answer the question of what makes it magnetic? What is attractive? And so we are thrilled to be able to share some of that insight with all of you today. And to do that, Kristen Onutka is going to lead the conversation as she was our coordinator for that effort. And she will introduce our partner in the work, and you are going to learn some really important insight over the next few minutes. Kristen, take it away.
Thanks, Casey. I really liked hearing everyone's stories and the nostalgia that comes with that too. So I think that was a really great way to break the ice here today. As Casey said, we went through a really extensive project this last year of surveying Greater Nebraska youth in 8 different communities and 10 different schools. And so we found some really exciting findings that definitely change our perspectives of what we think of youth and what we think they want. And we're really looking forward to sharing those with you today. Before though we get into the data, I want to let you all know that this is still an opportunity that your community and your fund can be a part of. So it's an ongoing effort that we have at NCF to try and better build relationships with our youth and to better engage them. And so with a $500 payment, funds can still be a part of it. They can get the survey done in their schools. They can get the hard data, the analysis of their survey findings. And then you are also able to follow up the survey findings with a roundtable discussion to talk more with your youth about what you found out about what they want. So I encourage everyone, if you are interested, if you have more questions, reach out to your regional coordinator, reach out to Casey or I. We would love to talk with you more and to help you be a part of this ongoing project. So with that, I'm going to introduce Josie Schaefer. She is the director for Center for Public Affairs and Research at UNO, and they were a great partner with us through this project. We could not have done it without them. They gave us some really great insight and data analysis of the findings and really put a story behind what our youth were trying to tell us. So Josie here is going to share with us some of those findings, and I'll have her take it away.
Thanks so much, Kristen, and thank you to the Nebraska Community Foundation for being a partner with us. I'm really the prescience to say, when we're trying to figure out how to create great communities, how important youth are to that. And the willingness to connect with the communities and go make sure the survey gets out in those communities, that we got great big samples. That's a lot of work, and it was wonderful to be able to do it with you all because you have those connections. So I was really excited to partner on this. Really excited to continue to partner on this. I think there is, we've had a lot of discussions about what else we could ask, where we could learn more, what would be really useful to the different funds, to the different communities. So I'm excited to keep talking about it. So we will get started in a second. Here we go. So we started talking about this a long time ago. Over sort of the last school semester, we were able to get some results in. So we talked to 8 different communities across Nebraska, 10 schools, over 1,300 responses for survey research. Those are really good numbers, really great distribution across the grades. Again, Kristen worked directly with the schools to have someone have the students take it right there during class, which I think is really important, because if it's just a voluntary participation, we might not have gotten the range of results that were meaningful, that allowed the survey to be valid. Should we lose it? Let me share mine. It's there for a second. Here we go. Carrie just put up the note chat about where it is. There we go. Okay, so 10 schools. There has also been some efforts by the Nebraska Community Foundation in the past to get to connect at some of the youth leadership summits. I think that's another great opportunity we might have, and we didn't add all that data together, but it's something we'll be looking at in the future. Can you switch the slide, please, Tina? There we go. So 3 main findings, and we'll dig in on how we know that and what we heard from the students. So there's this real value of safety, and I don't think any of us thought that would rise to the top as something youth really care about, but it did really clearly. They are very community oriented, really high levels of participation in a range of programs by the youth we surveyed. And they really do favor small communities. And again, that's, I think, the sort of the empirics we hear about migration trends that come out of my office, in fact, say that most youth leave rural Nebraska, but there is a real connection there. So what we can do to keep them in rural Nebraska became a real interest of ours in the survey. So one of the first questions we asked, we gave them a list of attributes about a community, and we asked them to rank them from most important to least important. And the top 3 here are what we're sort of calling safety. Low crime rate, obvious, and obviously very important. So I think it's a value that those communities have, that those our youth have really adopted and care about. Then good schools. In my breakout session, we had someone just talking about being on their school board and how important schools are as a connection point. And I think it clearly rises to the top. Good schools, right? A place where you can go, you're there all day and you feel like you can learn and grow and change and be around other people. That is safety. And then proximity to family. Family makes everyone feel great. But those right there at the top. There were other attributes, right, like entertainment, that didn't rise to the top, and we thought that was really interesting. Then we digged in on this idea of community oriented, and we asked a couple of different questions. So there was, how often do you get together with people from your town to do something positive for your community? And I think this is a really high level of community oriented, right? If you're going out and you're volunteering and you're donating and you're being active, and look at this group of people. These students are doing this, most of them a few times a year, about once a month, multiple times a month. A real majority is doing really good work in their community. And I think that really says something about those youth. They're going out and making an impact in their community. We also asked a lot of questions about, participating in sports and groups, and they were also really active there. But then when we asked a couple questions about how the community reached out to them, that's where we kind of saw a difference in the responses. So we can click to the next. So I feel connected to my hometown. I think this story comes through in almost every question, just an overwhelming majority saying they do. But then when we asked, does the community reach out to you? That's where we start to see responses differ a little bit. So my peers and I are invited to share our opinion or get involved in town projects or happenings. So still a big group saying yeah, but more saying no, that's not true for us. I play a role in this community. So you're involved in community events, programs, projects, play a role in their success, right? So this is not just you going out and doing something, but being integrated in the planning and organizing of those events too. And again, we see kind of a split. Another big group's absolutely saying, yes, it's true, but more than in some of the other questions of the youth saying, no, that's false. And so I think that's the big opportunity. What a great group of students that are going out and doing this work in the community. Now we need the community to reach back out to them and make sure they feel included. And I think all of these questions about community engagement, just like this conference is talking about, it matters because the stronger the youth feel it now, the more likely they are to come back. And so we want to make sure we have that. So, okay. So there you go. Okay, so here's where I start to worry. We have this awesome group of students. They're doing great work in their communities. They're connected to their communities. We'll see later that they like living in small towns. They value safety, which small towns offer in abundance. But what happens? So when you're an adult, how likely are you to live in the area you live now? And still overwhelmingly big group saying extremely likely or somewhat likely, almost half the pie is there. When you add neither likely nor unlikely, overwhelming, there's a pretty good chance that these students will want to live in these areas when they grow up. But what happens? So we can kind of follow them. Do the high school slide next, or the four-year college. Yep. So what are your plans after high school? So we know right now they're in high school and they say they absolutely want to live in these communities. Their plans after high school, though, overwhelmingly four-year college. And we know that's absolutely a trend in Nebraska. That's a trend nationally. But to go to a four-year college in Nebraska or out of state, you're going to have to move to a bigger town. You're going to gain a skill set that you may want more you may not feel you can work in those small communities once you've earned that skill set. And so as much as those high school students are connected to those places now, I worry that once they go off into different communities, maybe they meet a spouse that isn't from their small community, they won't have the same trajectory back that they might. And I think we see that in the migration trends too, that once, right, that group leaves under 25, it's harder to come back. So that importance of engagement now. So then the next slide sort of shows why they might not. So if you were to live in this area as an adult, what do you think the main reason would be? And so good place to raise a family and family ties, that's blue and green. Those are the reasons. So again, they're connected, their families are there. But again, if you think about migration trends, the next group of folks that leave are in their sort of aging adults, and that might be for better health care. And so if those assets are not built into the community, their family might not be there once they come back from a four-year university. And that's something to think through too. Can we jump back? Yeah, and then if you do not plan to live here as an adult, what is the main reason? And that's where we see career opportunity being a big piece of this puzzle. We don't have it here, but one of the questions we said, what are the things that you want to do and what jobs are in your communities? And there was a real mismatch. So they're, are really connected, really excited about their community. Young adult leaves, goes to a four-year college in a different town. They get a skill set and a job somewhere else, and then it's harder to come back. And I think as excited as they were, it's a concern going forward. But the story is, of course, not all bad. I was really surprised to just how connected they were and how much they liked what small towns offered. So what size community is your ideal to live in? Majority is small, and then an overwhelming majority when you add in those medium-sized communities. And we gave them examples of communities right here in Nebraska, and they liked them. Do you think there's a negative stigma? No. So I think that some of what we expected to find, right, that youth didn't feel connected to these places or that youth didn't want to return is not true at all. There's just so much opportunity because these youth are so excited about where they live. But what can we do to continue to build places that will welcome them home after a four-year college? As they build families, that'll be great places for them to live and work and play. And I think that changes throughout the life cycle of someone. And so it's so important now to be so engaging and to be thinking about all of the assets a community needs to be somewhere that someone can live their whole life. But really exciting too. Great opportunity to bring youth home. So that is the presentation. It is my understanding that we don't have time for questions, but I will be available always by email. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about the survey or what we found or about the survey going forward. Because like I said, I think there's so much more to learn from these youth that can help to build great communities. And I'm excited about that. Thanks.
So thank you both, Kristen and Josie. And as Kristen mentioned, this is something that your community can participate in. If you choose to, reach out to her and she can give you those details. Kristen, any closing thoughts on the survey?
No, I'll just mention again, it's in that resource tab that they had shared in the chat box. So if you want to look more at that data at another time, go ahead and check it out there or reach out to Casey and we can answer any other questions you might have.
As many of you know, at Nebraska Community Foundation, we really trade in active hope. So hope that gets put to work, not just hope. And so I think this is an example of that as we now introduce you to two communities who are not just taking this information and saying, well, that's nice, but in fact, thinking about how do we use this information to make a difference? Because information, even though it is encouraging, and we think this is very encouraging, doesn't really get the job done until it's put to work. And so our friends from Axtell and Columbus are going to share with you how they are putting to work what is coming out of this youth survey for them. And first up will be Janice Bergstrom, sharing how Axtell is using this information and the connection to youth generally to change the future in Axtell. Janice, you're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Thanks. Oh, am I still up now? I think I'm gone. Okay. So in Axtell, we did 2 surveys, and we had over 2 different years. And the surveys had similar results. And so this year we decided to add a focus group just to hone in a little bit on some of the things that we were finding, which incidentally were similar to what Josie has presented. So we talked with the class officers, thinking that they would be a good cross-section of our student body. And Dina Beck from NCF helped us. So when we met with the focus group, our first question was what their dream community would look like. And really it reinforced those survey results. They're looking for safety, for family and friends, for a good school, and then things typical of small towns, more dining options and recreation and more businesses. So then we asked them, well, what can we do to help them feel more connected to Axtell? And it was surprising, but they really focused on relationships, not on things. And they wanted more summer activities and things, especially when school is not in session. So they talked about having yard games in the park, doing co-ed softball, having a movie night, doing board games or even bingo. And they said that they would be willing to help plan these activities. So in addition, then we asked how they could make Axtell a better place. And they said that they realized they needed to focus their efforts to stay involved. They realized they needed to be more positive and that they needed to do a better job connecting with adults to build relationships and get things done. I thought that was incredibly insightful. Then we also asked what we could do to make Axtell a better place for our youth. And they had 4 main ideas. The first thing was to ask them to help. I thought that was amazing. They said that our community fund has ideas, activities, and grant making, and they would love to help us. Secondly, they asked us to encourage the youth to bring their ideas and businesses back home. The third thing is they wanted us to work more closely with school groups such as the FFA. And then they also wanted us to lift up the people who return and share their stories with the youth as encouragement. I thought that was neat. So the things that we did as a community fund, we increased our social media presence. We increased our Facebook posts. One of the students helped us create a website. We probably need to add Twitter and Instagram, but those platforms take work and we need a volunteer to help. So the last 2 years, we have given out pen and USB sets to our seniors at awards night, formally telling them that they're valuable and asking them to come back. And I have one right here, if you can see it. It says, come back home, Axtell Community Fund. So hopefully they'll see that they're treasured, and every time they see it, they'll think of home and want to return. Also then, we started planning a community cleanup day that was stopped by COVID. But we recently did facilitate a youth engagement grant for equipment in our school's new weight room. So the feedback was positive, and we're planning to do it again in 2022. Thanks, Casey.
Great stories, Janice, and that idea of taking this beyond the data and having a conversation is certainly one that NCF is intending to do whenever we are, again, allowed to do so with all of the communities. It is part of the youth survey process that the fund, NCF, and the schools are going to work together on as we have that opportunity. Up next is Dee Hansen, the chair of the Columbus Area Future Fund, talking about how the Columbus Fund has used the survey not even just to start a conversation with youth, but in other ways around their community as well.
Thank you, Casey. Yes, so when we were approached by Kristen to take part in this survey, I'll just echo what Casey said, in that the first concern from our group was that we did want to have some tangible data. We didn't want to just have data for data's sake. We wanted to be able to use this information and then take it out there with a purpose and with an intention. So it was really exciting to have her come in and help us take part in that opportunity. And it was really interesting to see the results that came out. were a lot of kind of what we were inclined to believe, but just to have that solidified and have that in a tangible format that we could then take out to our community partners and use that kind of to inform the direction of our group as well, and to kind of help to strengthen what we were going to do with those 4 pillars of our organization and the intention behind what we wanted to do as an FAC. So that was part of it. The other part of it that we were really excited about doing was sharing this information to kind of gain a little bit more credibility, a little bit more recognition, and a little bit more of offering something to our community rather than asking every single time. I think sometimes in our FAC, we get a little bogged down with the idea that, oh, we're always asking for money. We're always asking for money. And this time it was just really nice to come forward to our community partners and say, we have something great we'd like to share with you. Would you like to see what the youth in our community are saying? And that was really great because number one, it was awesome information. And number two, it was really great to be seen as that source of the information. The Future Fund isn't just a place to give out money or to ask you for money. We want to build up our brand as a Future Fund, and we want to build up that brand as one that makes connections and provides information and insight and gathers groups together to help make the community a better place. So obviously our first intention was to get that message out there and to share it with all of our community partners. So we went to all of our schools, of course. We had great participation from our 3 local high schools as they participated in this. We came back to them and said, look, this is what the youth are saying. We went to our local government, our local nonprofits, pretty much anybody that would listen to this data, we were willing to share it with them. And we were happy to do it and sit down and take the time. And it took the work of all of our FACs. So we realized as a group, and we've discussed this before among our FACs, is that we're not necessarily always going to be the ones that are boots on the ground, doing the work, actually making those dreams come true. But we want to be the place where those dreams can get started. And so having this information and having this data and being able to share that, we thought and we felt was a great way to put the Columbus Area Future Fund at the starting point of making a dream get its start. So that's kind of our alternate perspective there.
Awesome. Thank you, Dee, and Janice as well. 2 great stories and a little bit different approaches, perhaps, how to use this as a tangible tool that makes a difference in your place, that makes a difference for your FAC, that really allows you to have great market research when we're talking about how do we attract youth to Greater Nebraska. So the other tool that we're going to specifically lift up for you today is the idea of internships and an NCF hometown intern specifically. And I think as you consider, how do these things flow together, it just couldn't have worked out any better. And whether it was good luck or planning, we'll just leave for you to figure out. But take what Josie and our partners at UNO helped us learn about these high school youth. They really, far more than any of our generations, they really value what they have in Greater Nebraska. This is the kind of place they want to live. But what was by far the biggest concern they had, whether or not they could find the career they wanted in the place that they like, right? So what does an internship do? Provides you the opportunity to continue to connect them to that place and at the same time, expose them to career opportunities that I'm going to submit are in fact available in many of your places. They just don't know it. And certainly the last 8 months have opened up a completely different world of work for many people who are now working in Red Cloud instead of New York City, who are working in small places all across our country instead of where they were on March 1st, et cetera. Folks, we have an opportunity to expose them to careers that they don't think they can find, and the internship is such a great way to begin doing that. So to start this part of the conversation, we're going to have you hear from those interns directly via video. So here are some of our Nebraska Community Foundation hometown interns from the summer of 2020.
When people ask me what I want to be when I grow up,
that is the golden question.
This is a hard question.
Gosh, this is such a hard question for me.
Am I looking at you?
Oh, gosh.
I had to think deeply.
Sorry, I'm going to start over.
I do want to work with nonprofits.
I'd love to be an attorney. It's kind of my lifelong goal.
I want to be a conservation biologist.
I for sure am open to a future in Nemaha County.
I could definitely see myself living in a rural community in the future.
I think I would think about a future in my hometown.
So growing up, I've never really been able to experience the rest of the state of Nebraska. So with this internship opportunity, being able to connect with the other interns across the state has been really cool. Being able to see where they're from and kind of what they're working on. And it's always, those connections are something that's always going to last. And so if I do find myself back here in my community, being able to have those connections in other communities just like ours, it's going to be something to benefit me in the long run.
I was the guinea pig hometown intern last summer, and honestly that experience changed my whole perspective on what it means to be in a community. It changed my perspective on my hometown. It helped shape what I want to do with my life after college. I didn't really know that going into last summer. So having that transformative experience and working with an organization that I just really love their purpose and their values helps me to gain a love for the work of community development. But I think one of the important things, especially because so much of the work you did was based on building relationships in your community. In my role this summer, I get the privilege of working with all 12 of the interns that we have. And so they're scattered all over the state. So we've been doing a really wide variety of workshops and meetings, and as an opportunity to learn beyond just what they're learning in their communities, but also build community with each other as a group, especially because we didn't necessarily get the opportunity to meet in person this summer. We felt it was really important to meet as a group, even if it was virtually multiple times throughout the summer.
I wanted to get involved when I heard about NCF's intern program because I thought this would be a good chance to get involved with my hometown in a way that I haven't been before.
And it also gave me the opportunity to meet people in my community that I haven't necessarily been able to, even though I have lived here my entire life. Over the summer, I've been doing a lot with the asset mapping in the community, which is not necessarily tangible businesses, because the businesses that you see on the street right now, I've learned more about the kind of invisible behind-the-scenes organizations, which has been really cool, because, I mean, those are the organizations that really push your community forward, that bring the businesses here.
This summer, I was able to set up a really organized kind of database for all of our nonprofits in Perkins County. And then I was able to ask them kind of what projects they've been working on, what they've been needing assistance with, if there's any way that we could help them. And through that, I was able to make a lot of the relationships between the community foundation and just all of the nonprofits so much better.
There you go. Woo!
I think my work is making a difference because Boone County does need a lot of the resources that I worked on. And I know there has been a big issue with like childcare in Boone County. And so ways that they're trying to counteract that is with their Boone Beginnings, which is kind of like a childcare center, and then also with Cardinal Kids Club. So by like working on curriculum, I know that it's going to be put to use and it's a big part of the community in the future.
We surveyed all of our high school kids to find out why they would come home or why they wouldn't come back to Brown County, and we also found out what people of all ages in our community value. We did several promotional videos as well as wrote articles and talked to several community leaders. I was absolutely so surprised by how much support we received on our social media. I thought we would get maybe 1,000 likes, but over 10,000 people saw both of our videos, and it was just amazing to see how much people truly cared about just this small town in the middle of the Sandhills that no one hears about. So.
Hello, welcome to Columbus, Nebraska. Today I will be showing you some of my favorite places in Columbus. So most of my tasks this summer came from the Columbus Area United Way, specifically helping adults in the community improve their job relevant skills. So I interviewed a lot of service providers trying to assess the needs of the community, the current needs as they're always evolving. We put together a survey to kind of take it a step farther so we could actually talk to those in need, those who fall into the working class poor. And we just received a lot of new data on what our needs really are in the community, which will hopefully help the United Way and the Future Fund serve better.
This summer I'm doing a lot of social media things for my fund. One of the biggest things they wanted me to work on was just getting their name out there, and so being able to create videos, create graphics, and work on their social media pages is pretty cool, because that's exactly what I enjoy doing, and so it didn't even feel like I was working.
If you gave this place a chance, you can make something good. That's what my mother said to me.
Working on the Dream Switch project. Hopefully we can get that running up soon. So recently I'm working on an arts inventory, a sharing of skills virtually talent show here in our community, a poster art contest. Those are some things that are leading up to the Dream Switch. It's a story about a girl who leaves her hometown, and then she gets this letter saying, "We want you to come back," and she does, and a loving story about how her hometown really appreciates her and how she appreciates her hometown.
I think we're just waiting for that opportunity to be asked to come home.
Older generations really just need to, talk to us, invite us back.
I would urge them to be open-minded.
They can't be afraid of change.
I think that my advice is to connect with as many young people as you possibly can, and then giving them those opportunities for ownership and real change in the community.
Honestly, before I started this internship, I didn't think I would be back in the area. I wanted to live in a bigger city. That's something I've never been able to experience. But working this internship, I've realized that I can go off and get a 4-year degree in anything I want and still come home and make an impact on my community. It was pretty great.
So I hope you find that as inspirational, and it starts as many ideas for you as it does for all of us. These are 12 outstanding young people, plus their pioneer, who have been doing outstanding work in these communities. And you just saw a few of the ideas, a few of the ways that those communities worked with those interns to make a difference in their place. So we really have, I think, a treat for you now in being able to talk in a small group with some of the supervisors. So these are some of the adults, the members of the FAC who supervised the interns that you just heard from. So you'll have an opportunity to hear a little about their specific project, of course, and then ask some questions as well. And I'm going to encourage you as we go into this breakout to really look at this in terms of the active hope. So take some notes, break out your pen and paper, type it into your laptop. What are projects that you could do in your town? What did you hear in that video, or what are you going to learn from the supervisor that you're going to talk with that could be either replicated or adapted or somehow put to work with a hometown intern in your place, exposing that student to the community they want to be connected with job opportunities that may be available there, and giving you an opportunity to be the small town where they decide they want to land. So Dina will send you off to some small groups here. We've got 7 or 8 different groups that you're going to have an opportunity to get into one of. So again, when you see the box pop up on your screen inviting you to a breakout room, click on that accept button, and then we will see you back here in about 10 minutes. But in the meantime, really dig in, engage, and enjoy the conversation in a small group.
For the supervisors, and I hope that you heard some interesting stories for both their reflections and how impactful it was for them, but also to those students. It really was a joy to get to know them. The program is everything that we hoped it would be, which is to connect our bright and most talented students to their hometown in a meaningful way, have them feel engaged and like their presence there is making a difference. And it was a huge success. That's exactly what we saw, and that's what we anticipate moving forward. So thanks to everyone involved, and I hope that you heard something that inspired you to recruit your own intern or have us help you make a connection for an intern next summer.
Jenny, you want to take a shot at Michael's question in the chat? Otherwise, I've got, I can do so as well. But what's a one-line selling point for a community, or in this case, a country that is not familiar with an internship opportunity?
A one-line selling point. That is a great question, Michael. Do it. No, I'm just kidding. A one-line selling point is that we know students want to feel involved and like what they're doing matters. And an internship like this is exactly that opportunity. It's not about making copies and shredding paper and, or answering the phone. This is really about community development, about, this is way more than one sentence, Michael, I'm sorry. But in Casey, you're better, maybe you would have, you know I have all the words, so maybe you have one sentence that would be better. There you go. Young people are waiting for an invitation, says Pam. Change happens along the lines of relationships. Those are much better. That's great. It was a really terrific way to connect students to their hometown in a way that may have changed and did change their perspective on their hometown and on their future plans.
Yep, I think for me it is, here's a direct way to invite and encourage your community's youth to come home. And that's probably the work we should all be about these days. Janie, thank you for that, and certainly for the good work of leading the hometown interns over the course of the summer. So to wrap up, I think I'm going to go back to this idea of active hope, and within the perspective of this topic, attracting youth to Greater Nebraska or to Northern Ireland, whichever. I'm just going to say, folks, trying to put a scope or some parameters around, what's our opportunity right now? What's the window of opportunity that we have? I'm going to put it this way. I think in Greater Nebraska, we have the most significant window of opportunity to attract youth and change our population patterns that we have had literally since the decade of the 1890s. I mean that in the literal sense, not metaphorically. That is, I believe, the scope of the opportunity we have in front of us. And I say that because of what our own high school students told us in the youth survey. And I say that because of what demographers and other experts are saying about this centennial generation generally. And I say that because of research that I'm sure many of you all have seen as well in the last 6 months about how people are feeling, how millennials are feeling about being in a big city as opposed to a place like Greater Nebraska. All of those things are working together to give us a window of opportunity to change the population patterns in Greater Nebraska to a degree that we have not seen since before 1900. Think about the scope of this opportunity in those terms. So if we agree with the premise that this generation is interested in small places, in places where they have connection, in small towns where they can feel like they make a difference, if we believe that premise, and I think the data is there to support it, then what should we be doing about that? Let's put the hope into action. Let's make it active hope. What should we be doing so that it is our small town that they want to come to? Well, relationships matter. So reinforcing the family and friends relationships that already exist in many of these places, but being intentional about it, as Josie talked about. Reaching out, engaging youth to have active leadership in their community. They want to make a difference in your place. Creating that bond to this specific place when you have the opportunity, when you have a captive audience and they are in your schools, they are in your community. Creating that bond improves your odds later. Exposing them to career opportunities they don't think may exist in your place. but in fact, in many cases do. You can do all of those things today by engaging in a hometown internship, by learning what your youth think through a youth survey. You can go do those things starting tomorrow. And the first step is talking to a coordinator about what are those opportunities for either of these projects, or maybe you have a completely new idea. All of that absolutely is in front of you and on your list of possibilities starting tomorrow. And I would also comment on Mary Kay's point in the chat, and it's an excellent one. And it is why NCF is interested as a whole in this idea of rural broadband, because it matters, and it matters to all of you. And not every job, but certainly lots of jobs. We need to be intentional about what are the amenities and what are the necessities. And rural broadband is both. It is a necessity as well as an amenity. So Mary Kay, we are right there with you. And we all need to be working together to make sure that rural broadband becomes a reality. So great point. We are certainly well aware that it is something that needs to be part of the landscape in Greater Nebraska. And we are having those conversations. We hope all of you will engage in those conversations as well. So thank you for bringing that forward. It is one of those things we need to be working on together. But it is one of many. And most of those things you in fact control. You and your FAC can make a difference in a lot of ways to improve your odds. No guarantees. It's not the work of community development, very few guarantees, but you can improve the odds that these centennial students are going to want to come to your hometown and change the pattern that has been in place in terms of population and demographics in our places. So let's take advantage of that window of opportunity.